everyone, and thanks for joining us once again in Transforming the World Through Reflections. Today, our focus is going to be the shift that's been taking place in our lives, individually and collectively, as a result of the renewal in social justice initiatives that are happening both locally and at an international level. And today, I am so glad to be having the opportunity to talk about this with my dear friend Kimiko Warner-Turner, who's a teaching artist. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored. Your work, your books have inspired me, and I'm so glad that you thought of me.
I'm thankful that you're here too, and I think we should just jump in.
Sure.
How are you doing? What are your, musings as we're walking into the post-pandemic world?
Well, right now it's I'm breathing, and I hope others are able to breathe or get ways to breathe as well because of the shock wave, I think, that went through our society, and with the Supreme Court decision
Most recently.
to overturn Roe versus Wade, and then we had the gun legislation that was upheld, and I'm reeling from these two decisions, and so I'm in recovery and trying to find ways that I can be active. What can I do to help the situation?
It's so much. It's overwhelming. And I can relate. It's been a long 2 years of constant adjustment in this pandemic situation, and now more of what really got going quite a bit during the pandemic, the social justice movements, and with this legislation that you just mentioned, that gives us yet one more reason to be in this stressed state, and for many just outrage and grieving. So much grief has been the theme of this pandemic, and now we're going through it again, even though we're walking into this new world, if you will. You mentioned wanting to figure out ways to be active, ways to address, respond to the situation. What's come up for you? Have you found a way or ways?
I'm looking for many ways through the art that I do, through applied theater arts, hoping to gather with people to create art, and that shows resistance to closure and stepping back historically. I think that's really, really important. We did it also through COVID. And just as you say, this trauma that people had about being secluded and then coming back into an openness, only to feel that there's a separatism that's going on, a division that needs to be addressed artistically, as well as through conversation and donation.
Yes.
All of that to make voices heard, and to help with the fear. I'm afraid now. I have been afraid, really, and now that's just been amplified So finding moments of joy with each other, creativity with each other is very important to me, and to just offer my opinion based on fact, I guess, is really what I want to continue to do.
Yes. As I was listening you describe the ways in which the arts can support us in this process, I was reminded of that time earlier in the pandemic when you joined this conversation, and it was a group of us via Zoom. And the theme, one of the most watched and listened to of our episodes, was setting the tone for healing. And every single one of you brought up the power of the arts in not only processing all these feelings that we're having, but also creating space for healing, ours, and supporting, our community in the healing journey. So now that we're here, and you continue to allow your gifts as an artist to be a healing agent, what are the latest activities that you have participated in where, the arts give us voice?
One of the projects that I worked on that just finished in May was with Casa 0101, my good friend Corky Dominguez, and I worked with youth. And I love working with youth, letting them express their voices. I think, first of all, to me, the arts are, for me, my role is to facilitate rather than demand a particular end to a project, so that the community has the say. And I try to keep people on target, I guess you would say, right? Down a path, but to facilitate rather than offer opinion as to how people will fix things or what they want to work on. So at Casa 0101, we had a wonderful group of youth from the area around the theater. And they came up with trends and really talking about how trends affect their lives, good and bad, generational trends, how people see them, how older people who want to mentor may need some assistance in how to mentor, and then what brings them joy and what they're looking forward to. And we were able to have a performance at the theater Casa 0101 and also at Mariachi Plaza, which was really a great thing. And their words, their poetry, I mean, they just jammed. Wow. And we got a chance to put it together and add movement to their project and emphasize the things that they really wanted to say. And I'm very proud of that project. So I hope to go back soon and work on other projects with them. And I'm currently working with Shakespeare Center Los Angeles with a wonderful team of people, working on how Shakespeare and social justice can bring about change. Thinking about the themes.
Interesting.
Yeah, thinking about the themes that are brought up in sonnets. We decided to start working on sonnets first. And there's just so much to explore and own. I think as people of color, brown people, it's a tool to say, I come to the party and I I know what words mean, and I know how to use language to make myself known and for others to hear me. And it's in combination with the 4 domains from the Southern Poverty Law Center that they've devised on identity and diversity, justice, and action, taking action.
Taking action.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so connected to this theme that we've chosen for today, just to reflect on how all the actions taken here in our community and even internationally, how they mutually influence our experience of identity, what we find to address injustices. So I'm curious about what else is going to unfold. I'm hopeful. I want to hold on to hopefulness that all that's happening right now is shifting us in the right direction. You know?
Yes.
Because we're now in this experience of reflecting on how things can affect generations if we don't take action now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yes.
Yeah. And because, technology makes it possible for us to also be aware of how other countries are responding to a single theme, that can energize that process of taking action.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. And it's something where when you feel like you're taking action, then to me that's what the art is there for. To not only, like you're saying, reflect. I think reflection is a huge part of it. I think building community through art is a huge part of it. To understand each other through art is what it's about. That's the reason why we put things on the wall, or we dance certain routines, or whatever. We want to convey something where people say, I didn't know that before. I didn't know it happened that way.
Yeah.
Or, oh my goodness, I never knew that someone stood on the steps in front of Lincoln and sang opera because, she couldn't get into the opera house in D.C., right? So just having that as a base and then going forward into the idea of, well, if I create something, it will stir my mind, my thought processes to open up, to allow this openness is an action. To invite people in is an action. It certainly is part of it. And then to move into a place where you can ask, everyone can ask that question. What can I do? Yeah. What can I do next?
So the arts right now, we're experiencing it as a call to action. As a call to action. And also, I'm also curious to hear your thoughts on this, especially because, as you know, given that we both work with artists every day, we also hear them talk about how just starting a project is part of the artist's own healing. So not only inviting others into reflection, but also tend to their own healing. What's coming up for you in that area?
Well, definitely. When I think I speaking for myself, my journey has been to heal through the arts. When I went through just a horrendous divorce, I went back to the arts to say, I really, really need to use the arts to heal myself, to find myself, so that and then to share my genuine self. I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have healed without the arts being there. And so to be away from that, certainly I would feel isolated. The work that I do with youth, mostly at the high school, college level, community level, that is just all part of healing, or the continual, I guess, what is it? The rejuvenation or the continuation of sharing a moment of true beauty, I think, with each other. And when you do that, I do walk away going, they did it. I did it,
Yes.
and it helps everyone keep going. And you want that again because you realize how strong messages can be, how listening to people can help move communities forward. Just, inch by inch.
Inch by inch. I can relate as a psychotherapist, that being one of the healing arts, in the work that we do, unavoidably our own healing is happening too. And I know that that's one of the things that I'm grateful for, given that it's my life's work, because not only am I supporting the healing journey of someone, in the process, I'm continuing to heal myself. And, it brings to bear that we are also healing generations that came before us with every action we take to become more aware of our history not only of pain, but of triumph, so that we can go beyond surviving and just thrive.
Absolutely.
These crises are packed with gifts. It's just that the gifts are not always in a delightful package. They're invitations for us to take our actions to another level. Always honoring our wellness and that of others, including others who may not see things the way we do. How do we take action in a way that honors humanity? Right?
Yes.
And so that's the mission. It's not an easy one. It's so layered, and I'm thankful that you are doing the work that you're doing in involving the arts in this discovery process.
Well, I truly enjoy it. I think that, as you're saying, histories, there's so many histories that come together or are able to collide in the work that I enjoy doing. This idea of building community and really understanding where a person comes from is so important. We have this exercise called ¿Quiénes somos? Who are we?
¿Quiénes somos?
¿Quiénes somos? Who are we? And, you walk into a room and you're there to create, but who are we? Who am I sitting next to? Who is Melissa Shepard? What's going on with her? What's, Kimiko's background? And just really, just being really able to explore that and to be honest about that and to be honest about our culture, our cultures, how we blend, how we don't blend, what, all the power dynamics in each one of our cultures, everything, understanding that's what's brought into the room.
Yes.
It's brought into the room every time we do anything. And we just, for me, it's important to explore that space where people have an opportunity to really say something about who they are.
Are there common themes that emerge every time you facilitate a Quienes Somos activity?
Gosh, I think no, I don't think so. Because it just depends on the community.
The group. Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at this and you're asking questions. People are answering those questions and you're exploring each other in a way that, you're just, you get an opportunity to observe or, like you're saying, reflect, notice. And then from that noticing, every group is a little bit different because every person is different. Everyone comes in with their own power, their own dignity, their own cultural upbringing.
Can you imagine what it would be like if this Quienes Somos, Who Are We project was part of the discourse in the current crisis that we're experiencing? From the beginning of the conversation, you brought up the most recent shockwave, the Supreme Court decision. The shockwave of, pain that we experience every time a massacre happens, as it did in Uvalde, and then you brought up the gun control policies. Can you imagine how powerful it would be if the Quienes Somos exercise came into this process of discovering how to move forward, how to heal, how to take just action based on really recognizing who we are?
I think that's a great idea. Let's fly with that one, Melissa.
I mean,
I really do.
I can only imagine if there were multiple places, multiple groups experiencing this so that we can discover, what influences our actions, what new actions can we take? I'm following your action theme.
Yes.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, because then when we do that, we start putting out the fires, right? We don't add to the agitation, I think, but we start putting those things out and reaching an understanding about each other and holding space for each other in a humane way.
Hopefully.
So
right?
You're
you're feeling that kind of activity, of the many that you practice with groups, would quell the agitation?
I think it would have it would have an effect on the agitation. I think it's a starting point to an opening an opening, if you will. Instead of a window, I think of it as a door, a wider opening to what is possible beyond the door. You can still go back and forth, right? But you can have that opening as well. And I think that that's just, what we need. I've used sarcasm too, believe me, especially this last couple of weeks, and shared a lot of my angst in that respect too, but also listening.
So I'm curious to learn about how that agitation is quelled to the point where you can envision people going in and out of this door of possibilities once they're in that group. Does it involve creating a sense of safety to get to that point?
Yes.
How do you go about it?
It comes from the community, really. I think that people have a desire to be safe.
Yes.
Rather than feel unsafe. And so, again, I feel like the arts are a place where building safety, it has to be practiced.
Yes.
And you have to be reminded how to do it. You have to be reminded or, allow space to practice it. I think when I was working with a group of youth and somebody said something that was just, no, that's not possible. And I said, I think the thing about it is conversation, allowing conversation, but conversation isn't shutting down the other person to get your point across. The conversation happens when you allow somebody else to speak their truth.
Yes.
And accept it at that point of the conversation.
Yes.
And that's a discussion. That's a two-way street. And I think that the arts too open up that area of discussion where you can say, well, what about that? Let's talk about that a little bit more. Say more about that.
So now it's dialogue.
Yeah.
Instead of confrontation, aggressive confrontation.
Right.
There's questioning, there's curiosity.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful to hear this because it's something that I too am learning in the therapy process. We're inviting curiosity as a way of, responding to agitation rather than just reacting to it, And given that so many long-standing injustices are being again questioned, that's going to create agitation not only in the oppressed, but also the oppressor. And so the oppressor will up the ante. So we definitely need to have so many more mechanisms to be conscious about the agitation so that something productive can happen rather than, perpetuate what's been going on for generations.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes. We have as long as there is something where somebody is experiencing inequality, where there's always going to be social justice and arts needed.
Always.
And the things for the communities that I work with is what is the most urgent at this moment?
That's the question.
Right? And so it can evolve, it can change, it can be layered, multi-layers, but that's what drives the art.
Yes.
Is what is urgent at this moment. And I can only imagine other artists going through this process right now thinking, it's urgent.
It's urgent.
It's urgent.
It's urgent. So urgent that I remember us throughout the pandemic, encouraging our communities to recognize that the crisis is such that none of us can afford to ignore the fact that we need to amplify our gifts so that we can heal generations.
Mm-hmm.
And the arts are a part of this process. Wow.
Definitely.
Kimiko, I know that there's so much that could be shared here about the work that you've been doing. I'm thankful that you joined us, and I would like to invite our community to connect with you. And I'm wondering what are ways that you may want to share, so that the conversation continues with you.
Thank you. The best thing is my Gmail. I have to admit, I'm not a techno whiz, or I'm not on Instagram that much, but I do post things at Tom Kiko. That's my husband's name and my name put together. So I have an Instagram, and then my Gmail, KimikoB1@gmail.com. Those are probably the best ways. You can reach me right now through Shakespeare Los Angeles as well. And I also, I'm working on a program too about social justice and thriving at the Music Center. So
beautiful.
Music Center Education Division. So I'm all over the place because I'm a teaching artist,
Yes.
and that's what we do.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kimiko. As always, it's a pleasure to be in conversation with you. So much to reflect on. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's so important that we continue this process. So, as always, may we continue transforming the world through reflections.